All right, there were three notable Trump events over the weekend, and I want to go over them with you. Joe Biden expected to announce his reelection this week and have an event of his own, which we will, of course, cover live and then have clips for you when it happens. Let's start with the first of three Trump events. Trump did what's called the Nelk Boys interview. People leave me voicemails and they think it's the Milk Boys. It's the Nelk Boys. Okay, very important to understand. Completely deranged and hilarious. This was Trump, I guess, trying to be kind of like an everyday guy of sorts or something like that. But one of the really interesting things is that Trump, for all of his praise of Florida and DeSantis during the pandemic, he's now retroactively talking about how terribly things went in Florida during the pandemic. Now, as is often the case, Florida is the epitome of mediocrity. Florida wasn't disastrously bad during the pandemic, and it certainly wasn't very good. They had a pretty high death rate, but certainly not the highest death rate. So anyway, Trump now is doing this whole thing where DeSantis proves that he's bad because Florida was bad during the pandemic.
Why do you think he's besides that, because he's done a pretty good job with Florida, you agree? Why do you think you're a better choice than DeSantis?
Well, actually, if you look at the numbers, he didn't do a great job. If you take a look at the numbers, he's very high on crime. Very high, right at
He's high on crime. He's smoking it daily.
the top, almost at the top. I think he gets good publicity, although now people are starting, because I'm putting out the COVID numbers. He didn't do well on COVID. He had more deaths than almost every country in Florida. I hate to say it because Florida's my state, but he did not do well. It's very interesting. I don't want to knock anybody, but the thing he did well on is public relations, because the numbers weren't what they pretended to be. With all of that being said, when you help somebody, I believe in loyalty. You just don't do what he did. Now, he's out campaigning. I assume he's going to run, but I think the numbers are so bad now that a lot of people are assuming that he won't run. And
Would you consider him to be your running mate?
I don't see it. I mean, I don't see it. We have a lot of great people in the Republican Party.
Yeah. Increasingly, it is being suggested that Trump is going to pick a completely insane woman rather than a completely insane man to run with him. And Ron DeSantis is so listen, the truth about Florida and COVID, as with most of these things, for a while, they'll praise someone and then they'll attack someone for the exact same thing. The truth about COVID is Florida wasn't great. And Ron DeSantis made some pretty boneheaded moves when it came to COVID and Florida. And Florida, in part, thanks to being a warmer state where people spend a lot more times outside, it probably mitigated some of the disastrous effect of the DeSantis COVID policy. But Florida was nothing to write home about. It's not an outlier when it comes to COVID one way or the other, but Trump is making a big deal out of it now. The topic of dictators came up during the interview with the Nelk Boys, and Trump, of course, praised dictator Kim Jong-un and just generally seems really impressed with dictators. This will come up later in our segment on the show about Trump's interview last night with Fox News' Mark Levin about Trump's infatuation with dictators. But here's just a little preview, Trump talking about Kim Jong-un.
Another thing I want to ask too, something historic that I'm always amazed by what you did is how you got along so well with all these world leaders, especially Kim Jong-un.
Now, I have to pause it right there, and I'm not going to pause it again during this segment. This shows how the Nelk Boys don't know anything. If you know anything about the history of American presidential relationships with North Korean leaders, it's not a surprise that once an American president agrees to meet with a North Korean leader, if he is impressed by the apparent charisma of that North Korean leader, they're going to say, hey, I did something great. It's amazing that I've been able to maintain this good relation now in person with this leader. North Korean leaders, going back to Kim Il-sung, have been interested in and wanted to meet with American presidents and get the exact sorts of photo ops that they got from Trump, because it's good for them. It's good for propaganda value. It's good for showing, look, we're respected the way American presidents are. And the reason that these meetings haven't taken place the way Trump did his with Kim Jong-un in the past is that American presidents saw the propaganda value to the North Korean leadership of such a meeting. And so they didn't want to do those meetings without preconditions, pre-negotiations that the North Korean leaders never agreed to. Trump and these Nelk boys being impressed with the way they were able to cordially meet with Kim Jong-un, it goes to their naivete about how North Korea works. All right, let's listen to the rest of this.
What was he like as like a person? Because he's like such a mysterious Batman kind of like figure. No one knows what he's like. What is Kim Jong-un?
Well, first of all, he's very smart and he's very cunning and he's very ruthless.
How so? Like what makes him so smart?
Well, I guess genetically he was born pretty smart.
It was bred into him. They bred in the intelligence, the way we want to breed math skills. Who was it? Candace Owens, who said we need to breed math skills into our kids in order to be better than the South Koreans, I guess.
Don't forget, he took over a country at 23. And even though he was sort of like, it was like an inheritance, this is a country with smart, energetic people. He, from a very early start, got it. He took it over from his father, but very young. And you had generals and you had all of these people and armies and, everything. And he gained control. And let me tell you, he is the boss of that country. But I got to know him very well.
Yeah. Might be interesting to lead with an absolutely brutal dictator oppressing in a completely almost beyond words way about 25% of the North Korean population, oppressing more softly another 50% of the population, and creating this kind of overclass of his sycophants and suck-ups with another 20, like that's where I would start rather than cunning and amazing and incredible what he was able to do. Okay, only someone who understands no history could ask that question or answer it in that way. Trump at another point when talking about this J6 song says he didn't even know what Billboard was or what iTunes is until, I guess, a few weeks ago.
And it was done by the J6 prisoners who have been treated horribly. When you see the way Antifa got treated and so many others that did such destruction and caused death, and these people were treated horribly, and they asked, would I do a voiceover? I did basically a voiceover of the song. And it went to #1 on Billboard, on iTunes. These are names I never even heard of 3 weeks ago. But iTunes, #1, Billboard, #1. Billboard's like a big deal because that's sort of like you would tell me. But as you know, it went to it's Donald J. Trump and the J6.
Yeah. Interestingly, iTunes has actually been shut down years ago. It's now Apple Music and then Apple Podcasts and Apple TV. So one of the funniest things is Trump says he didn't learn about iTunes until a few weeks ago. It actually was shut down years ago. It's all just a mess. And then lastly, during this interview with the Nelk Boys, Trump says if he was leading a South American country, he would just dump the prison population and the, quote, mental institution population right into the United States, which he claims they are doing, which they are not.
Who wants an open border where people from mental institutions are being dumped into the U.S., where people from prisons, where entire prison populations of countries are being, and I do the same thing. If I was the president of a South American, or not only South American, they're coming from all over the world.
He may not know the names of any South American countries, which is why he paused like that.
They're dumping their prison population into the United States of America. They're dumping their people from mental institutions and words that aren't used anymore. Insane asylum. Did you ever hear? You're too young. That's where Silence of the Lamb.
Of course.
That's
the Lamb. It's Silence of the Lambs, right?
Where Silence of the Lamb happens to be,
what's his name?
Represented. But insane asylums. These are seriously sick. They are being dumped into the United States of America.
Yeah, huge, massive dumps. They're not happening, though. That's untrue. It isn't happening. The most depressing thing about the Nelk Boys interview to me is that these guys, these Nelk Boys, basically seem like suck-ups to Trump. They don't know anything about history. Their questions, they can't even form an actual critical question because they lack such knowledge. And that's why Trump is so impressed with them. Trump walks in and everybody's throwing bouquets at each other and they got Trump a gift. Whereas if Trump appeared on a single podcast that could actually assemble a logical interview, you would have a very different outcome. That I can assure you. One of our sponsors is Helix Sleep. I have been sleeping on a Helix mattress at home for years now. I couldn't be more happy with it. I recommend it to everybody. The other day, even though she's not allowed in the big bed, I put my baby daughter on the mattress and even she loved it. Helix Sleep is the premium mattress brand offering tailored mattresses based on your unique sleep preferences. Take the Helix Sleep Quiz. It asks you about your body type, your sleeping position. Do you get hot at night? Do you have back pain? And then Helix will match you with the mattress that's perfect for you. Most people don't know where to begin when shopping for a mattress, including me. Helix makes it simple and less risky because you know you're getting a mattress that fits your needs. It ships free. You can try it for 100 nights to see if you like it, and it comes with a 10 or 15-year warranty. Unlike many mattress companies, all Helix mattresses are made in the USA by a skilled production team, so you are supporting good jobs. Helix Sleep is giving my audience up to 20% off plus 2 free pillows. What other mattress company is going to give you 20% off? Go to helixsleep.com/Pacman. The link is down below.